On the morning of May 25th, 2023, federal and local law enforcement would join together in California to arrest members of a violent criminal street gang operating within Fresno County in California's Central Valley. In total that day, 34 suspects would be arrested during Operation Broken Bonds. 10 of the suspects were arrested on federal charges, including racketeering, drug trafficking, violent crimes, and firearms offenses. The main gang that would be targeted was known as Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños, which is blamed for an increase in violence, including homicides and illegal weapons found in and around Fresno, particularly in the cities of Reedley and Parlier.
Also developing now, federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies are working together to make sure that criminals are off the street. Authorities just wrapped up a 100-day operation focused on a criminal street gang in Fresno County. Action News anchor Brittany Jacob joins us now with the results of the major arrest. Brittany.
Graciela, in a joint press conference, law enforcement announced the arrest of 34 dangerous people in Fresno County. We're talking 55 search warrants coordinated by 700 law enforcement just yesterday. Authorities say the arrest of these men and women are expected to have an immediate effect in lowering violent crime in the county. Dozens of Central Valley gang members are off the streets after a multi-agency investigation in Fresno County, dubbed Operation Broken Bonds, focusing on violent crimes, drug sales, and illegal firearms possession.
13 defendants are charged in the federal criminal complaint.
This operation responded to multiple homicides in Parlier, Reedley, and Kingsburg. In Parlier, gang members killed 2 people in 2 separate incidents. The first was 16-year-old Ricardo Chavana Jr., a high school student with no gang ties. He was sitting on his bed when he was shot through the back window of his home.
They killed my son, but they also killed me.
The other victim was a farm worker, 52-year-old Silvano Mendoza, who was on his way to work in June of 2021 when he was shot and killed by the same gang. The victim's daughter says she moved out of Parlier to feel safer.
There's nothing in this world that's going to bring back my dad. You know, nothing at all. But I feel like he's not getting 100% justice that he should.
During the operation, 26-year-old Francisco Munoz was arrested for killing Mendoza.
It just goes to show the violence that these individuals committed upon residents and people in the community of Parlier, people in the surrounding cities of Reedley, Kingsburg, in communities in Fresno County and also in Tulare County.
Operation Broken Bonds started in February of this year with undercover narcotics and gun buys, search warrants, surveillance, arrests, and uniformed enforcement. But most of the search and arrest warrants were served Thursday, with 34 people arrested, 13 of them facing federal charges for racketeering, drug trafficking, violent crimes, and firearm offenses. Cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamine, and fentanyl were seized along with 64 guns.
Our communities are safer, and people in those communities don't have to keep looking over their shoulders and don't have to put up with this level of violence that they've had to put up with for the last few months.
Now tonight, all 34 defendants remain in custody. According to the Fresno County District Attorney's Office, they are working with prosecutors to finalize these investigations, and a list of charges will be filed against the suspects by Tuesday. In the studio, Brittany Jacob, ABC 30 Action News.
Here tonight, local, state, and federal law enforcement officers all took part in a huge gang crackdown, mostly in the city of Parlier. CBS 47's Ben Morris is live outside the federal courthouse in downtown Fresno with more on the arrest and also the disturbing details that you're learning. Ben.
Titled Operation Broken Bonds. It's a 100-day operation with law enforcement from the state, federal, and local level taking in dozens of suspects and confiscating dozens of guns and drugs, and officials saying it will really help to crack down on crime in the county. The operation focusing in on dismantling Norteño gang organizations in Fresno County.
We arrested 34 individuals. We seized 64 guns, approximately 1 pound of cocaine, over 7 pounds of methamphetamine, over 1.5 pounds of fentanyl.
26 of those arrests coming Thursday, with over 700 agents from 18 law enforcement agencies serving 55 search warrants in parts of Fresno and Tulare counties, as well as the cities of Parlier, Reedley, and Kingsburg.
12 individuals were arrested for carjacking, 3 for home invasion, 5 for conspiracy to commit murder and other felony crimes, 3 were arrested for homicide, 2 for ag thefts, and 3 additional individuals were arrested for robbery and extortion.
Included in those arrested for homicide is 26-year-old Francisco Munoz, who is charged with the first-degree murder of 52-year-old Silvano Mendoza. Authorities say Munoz shot Mendoza in Parlier as he was on his way to work with a group of co-workers in June of 2021. Authorities also believe one of the suspects is behind the death of 16-year-old Ricardo Chivana, who was shot through his bedroom window in Parlier in February of last year.
It just goes to show the violence that these individuals committed upon residents and people in the community of Parlier, people in the surrounding cities of Reedley, Kingsburg.
The operation involved tapped phones, detailed surveillance, and more.
The federal charges in the complaint include conspiracy and attempt to murder rival gang members, to further the Nuestra Familia and Norteño racketeering enterprise.
One of those federally charged is the believed leader of the Fresno County Norteño gang.
They felt like no one was going to hold them accountable, no one was going to stop them. Did we get everybody? No, we didn't. But the communities are safer.
Sheriff Zanoni says additional federal charges could be on the way. Reporting live in Fresno, Ben Morris, CBS 47.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Hope y'all having a blessed day. Hope you're having a good start to the weekend. I'm about ready to get off work, but I want to get this video up for you guys to start off the weekend right. We're going to be talking about a case out of Fresno County that took place a couple years ago. It was called Operation Broken Bonds. Now, I have watched videos on this. I've even got bits and pieces from this operation to cover other stories, but I've never covered the operation as a whole and the main gang that was targeted. Now, that Norteño gang that was targeted was known as Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños. Okay, and the investigation would begin in July of 2021, mainly for the same reasons why all law enforcement at the federal and local level want to do these operations: to get guns, to get drugs, to get violent people off the streets. That was the target of this. But it runs really, really deep. You're going after Norteño gang members, but you're also targeting the bigger dogs up in the California prisons, the Nuestra Familia gang members, who are the ones calling the shots on the streets. Okay? And these Norteño gangs, they have a very, very rich tradition. The Parlier, that actual city, it's a very farm-rich community. Grapes, other exports that are constantly going out of there. It's a very close-knit community, but the gang scene in this area, in the Central Valley, in Fresno County, there's a lot of different Norteño subsets. There's a lot of different cliques. It's easy to get them confused. But Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños were the main target of this operation. That, again, it began in July of 21, and it would wrap up almost 2 years later in May of 2023. But first, I'm going to read you guys. There are 14 bonds of the Norteños. I don't know if I've ever actually covered them on my channel. I'm just going to read them to you guys to give you an idea of how strict these rules are and how tight this group really is. The 14 bonds. The 14 of the bonds are written guidelines that every Norteño and brother must follow while in and out of prison. Breaching these laws usually results in death. 1. All Norteños will strive for better education, respect, and social status of equality. This includes and goes beyond acquiring all incentives and privileges entitled to an inmate. 2. All Norteños will take a strong positive attitude towards aiding and assisting all those of Latin descent, as well as any other minority group worthy of our cause. It is our duty to work together in harmony and unite those forces in alliance with us to reach out and set goals. All Norteños will do everything in his reach and capability to acquire mainline status. Basically means you can't be no good. You can't be an informant. You can't have certain charges. And if they deem you no good, then you are no longer on mainline status. For these are the groups we must secure for our fellow Norteños and all those who live for the cause, to have a strong establishment, to go without the threat or interference of the opposition, which are the Southsiders, La M.A., Mexican Mafia. In order to continue our struggle with far fewer difficulties, these shall be no tolerance created by internal confrontation, individualism, or homeboy favoritism. No Norteño will spread false rumors or negative gossip about a fellow Norteño, and at no time will a Norteño attempt to take advantage of or disrespect a fellow fellow Norteños ruca or familia. To do so will result in serious repercussions. A ruca is like a female. All Norteños will, number 5, all Norteños will acknowledge and respect the authority in charge at all times. No Norteño will feel inferior to one who holds rank or position, nor will a Norteño holding rank or a position of some type feel superior over his fellow Norteños because of his status. Number 6, all data pertaining to a new arrival shall be reported through its proper channels immediately. 7, at no time will a Norteño endanger the life of a fellow Norteño. There shall be no fighting amongst Norteños, nor shall any cowardice dealing with the canine or enemy be tolerated. 8, no Norteño will lie or boast about his status. Be the rank or file, he will take high regards for his physical and mental well-being and will always strive to better himself. That basically means you're going to work out, you're going to keep your mind strong, and the idea is you're going to stay away from drugs and alcohol and anything that's going to make you weaker. 9, should a Norteño be transferred from one facility to another, it is his sole duty to establish a branch in the union to procedures set henceforth and work hand in hand with other Norteños. 10, every chapter and stronghold of Norteños will keep track of all enemy and enemy activities behind enemy lines. 11, it is each Norteño's responsibility that is aware of our struggle to teach and school all those destined for the Pinta. No Norteño should enter the Pinta blind or without knowledge of our struggle behind the walls. And that basically means you are getting ready to go to prison. And if you can't already tell by, through 11 bonds, you're becoming a warrior. You're becoming a soldier. Mind, body, your physical, your mental, everything is good to be strong. It's a brotherhood. Anything, get all the weakness out. Anything that is going to make you weak or cause a rift between our group needs to be out. That's why there's no disrespecting of the family, no disrespecting of the girl, right? Number 12, a Norteño will protect and defend his household to the fullest, no matter the circumstance or consequence. 13, a Norteño leaving to the streets is encouraged to assist his fellow Norteños behind the walls. That means you're going to put money on the books. You're going to support the higher-ups. 14, a Norteño shall stay abreast of all new laws, policies, and procedures. That means you're going to keep up on your language. You're going to keep up on what's going on. You're going to listen to your superiors. And all that sounds really good. All that sounds like, man, great idea. Sounds like something you'd want to be a part of. But then the real word happens, right? Drugs, infighting, jealousy, challenge of, authority happens. People slip up, people lie, people become informants, people get off a main line, and, people sleep with other people's girlfriends. And, that's the real life of that stuff. When you write those rules down, they sound great, something to adhere to, but then real life takes over. Okay, so Operation Broken Bonds, like I said, Fresno County, targeting Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños. It's a pretty big group, pretty well known when you look them up. They got a lot of rappers out there that are making music and, progressing this Norteño movement. Like I said, investigation, July of 2021. This is an article from when they finally, like I said, this was a massive local and federal law enforcement to basically go after these gang members. We're going to be talking about the article that talks about the arrests and all the guns and drugs that got off the street. And then we're going to be going to another article that talks about a murder that really, really rocked the community and the individuals involved in that. It was a case of mistaken identity. But first, let's start with this. On May 26, 2023, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, along with federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, announced the arrest of 34 suspects, as well as a seizure of 64 illegal weapons, ammunition, and illicit drugs that included fentanyl as part of a multi-agency operation targeting a criminal street gang in Fresno County. Operation Broken Bonds occurred May 25th, 2023, and targeted the Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños criminal street gang, alleged to be responsible for an increase in violence, including homicides and illegal firearms in the Fresno area, specifically at the cities of Reedley and Parlier. Additionally, the group is accused of making threats to local law enforcement. And this is crazy, guys, including a 2022 involving arson against a Parlier Police Department vehicle. They also shot up the local police department. So they were doing things that were going to attract this sort of attention, especially when the feds come in. When the feds come in, everything's changed. All these different task force, all these different sheriff's office. I'm not going to read them all off. Department of Justice, FBI, high impact investigation team. They literally and figuratively brought the house down on these guys. And then there's all the thank yous, right? I want to thank the work of our local, state, federal, and local law enforcement agencies for their collaboration, making Fresno County a safer place. It's all that political blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you got some drugs, you got some guns, you got some bad guys off the street. And I know you can't not do that. But again, it's just like, don't overplay it, right? You guys only did so much. Some of those arrested at the federal level. The federal defendants and their charges are as follows. Victor Javier Zermano, 34, of Clovis, is charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine. Matthew Pete Mendez, 32, of Reedley, is charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine. And fentanyl, Miguel Angel Barragan, 27, of Parlier, is charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering and attempted murder in aid of racketeering, possession of firearm, and furtherance of a crime of violence. Joey Noel Magadon, 20, of Cutler, is charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering and attempted murder in aid of racketeering, possession of a firearm. Jonathan Maldonado, 33, of Parlier, is charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering and attempted murder in aid of racketeering. Ezekiel Maximino Guzman, 18, young, of Del Rey, is charged with conspiracy to commit murder in aid of racketeering and attempted murder in aid of racketeering. All those racketeering, all that fancy language, that's all Fed talk, and that means a lot of time behind bars. Francisco Diaz Salinas, 40, of Parlier, is charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. Eduardo Mazuca, 32, of Reedley, is charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute cocaine. Michael Neary, 33, of Reedley, is charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute cocaine. Alejandro Hawkins, 24, of Reedley, is charged with the distribution of cocaine. Francisco Ferman, 28, of Delano, is charged with conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine. And finally, Ivan Hernandez, 25, of Parlier, is charged with interface with commerce by robbery and using, carrying, or brandishing a firearm during relation to a crime of violence and aiding and abetting. We're going to wrap these guys up on everything. Now, another article that came out about this case with a little more information. This is basically the day after the May 25th, Operation Broken Bonds went down. Produced 34 gang-related arrests and the seizure of 64 firearms. Gives a little bit more information. 9 pounds of meth, fentanyl, and cocaine, authorities said Friday. On Thursday, 550 federal, state, and local law enforcement personnel executed 54 warrants in Parlier, Reedley, Delray, Dinuba, and Clovis. And it was a 100-day undercover investigation focused on criminal activity by the Nuestra Familia prison gang and the Norteño criminal street gang within Fresno County. And that's the Varrio Parlier criminal Norteño gang. Excuse me. They talk about how they shot up a police station, and then it goes into a murder, all right? So, suspected murder of Silvano Mendoza, okay? And I put his picture up, and that guy, Silvano Mendoza, was 52 years old. He was a father and a grandfather, and basically he was killed for absolutely nothing. And the person that did it was a Norteño gang member, and it was something that, it did not need to happen. The guy that killed him was a guy by the name of Francisco Muñoz Jr., who was 26 at the time of his arrest. And the murder happened actually 1 month before the investigation started. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So the murder of Silvano Mendoza, who was 52 at the time, by Francisco Muñoz, happened in June of 2021. In July of 2021, the investigation for Operation Broken Bonds would begin. Mendoza was a field worker on his way to his job when other coworkers that he was in a car with pulling up to a home on the 13,000 block of 9th Street in Parlier when he was shot. Fresno County Sheriff's Office spokesman Tony Body said in a news release. And it ended up coming out that it was a case of mistaken identity. 5 children, 10 grandchildren. Normally he didn't work on Sundays, but he decided to head to the fields to earn extra money. And when you just read that, it's kind of like the story we read yesterday about the 7-Eleven owner. It just pisses you off, man. The day he was gunned down, family members said. Lots of people said Francisco was innocent. So that was the flip side of this case, okay? There were suspects in other unsolved murders that were basically people were questioning about this particular murder of Silvano Mendoza. But at the end of the day, Francisco Muñoz ended up found guilty. And on October 2nd of 2025, yes, yesterday, he was sentenced. And that's another reason I wanted to bring this story to you guys, because in doing research, I came across this. So yesterday, he was sentenced. More than 4 years after the death of Silvano Mendoza, a convicted Parlier killer learned his sentence and came face to face with his victim's daughter. Quote, "I struggle every day to make sense of why this happened and how to continue living with this pain," Almira Mendoza said. Francisco Muñoz sat quietly and stared straight ahead as Almira spoke. Prosecutors say Muñoz shot Mendoza from a passing car in what they previously described as a deadly case of mistaken identity. Quote, "Every night I want you to see my father's face," Johanna Mendoza read aloud on behalf of another family member. Quote, "You stole his life and nothing will ever change that." And he ended up getting 21 years, which pissed off a lot of people. They basically said 21 years is not enough because of his age. Right now he's probably 28, 21, get out by the time he's like 50, maybe a little earlier. And again, I know some of you are like, what does this have to do with the Operation Broken Bonds? He was wrapped up in this Operation Broken Bonds case. When the feds and the state came down and those 550 agents, whatever, were investigating this, they solved this murder throughout the course of this investigation. So that is how it's tied in. Now, I will say this. Lastly, I'm going to give a shout out to A Convict's Perspective channel, Big Flock over there. I did watch some of his video when he covered this, and he actually brought up a good point that the Goshen massacre, which I've done 2 videos on, all right, which basically just before 4 p.m. on January 16th, 2023, deputies with the Tulare County Sheriff's Office get called to a home in the 6800 block of Harvest Road. It's like an unincorporated area of Goshen for multiple shots fired. They find 6 people killed. I'm just going to leave it at that. Go YouTube it. Go watch my couple videos on it. I got the main one on it. I think it's actually one of my best videos I've done as far as view-wise. I think you guys will like it. It gives a really good breakdown. It's a horribly sad case, but what Big Flacco says in A Convict's Perspective is this happens, okay? This happens in the beginning of 2023. Now, obviously, the investigation started in 21, but again, if you look at the time frame on this, within about 4 or 5 months, they wrap up this case, and they come down super hard, right? They make a big spectacle of it, over 500 agents, and what this channel, what A Convict's Perspective channel said is, now with these high-profile murders that have occurred, with a family of 6 being gunned down in and around this area, you have to kind of make a statement when you arrest all these people, when you lock all these people up, when you come out with all this information. They can't directly say, yep, this is why we did it. They're never going to say that, but I think he makes a good point, and I think it was worth mentioning. But yeah, this case and this operation had a lot of layers to it. When you see that many agents and everything, you know it's a big deal. And I never heard of Varrio Colonia Parlier Norteños. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Tried to give you guys a lot of information on this. We never read the bonds before. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, have a great weekend. Peace.